you, and then sharing my slides as well. I just have a few. And so I'm really excited to present this. So I'm going to try and share my screen, and we will go back and forth. Okay. So, classic doctor spiel. If we do talk about meds, some may not be FDA approved. I do work for PrairieCare. I'm an employee there. I'm going to talk about some services that I'm really familiar with there. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about other services throughout the city. But I just want to give you a heads up that that is where I work. I don't work for any pharmaceutical companies. And then this is just kind of another standard disclaimer that I am not stepping in to be your doctor. I'm not trying to be a psychiatrist to you. I may be talking generally, but if you do need support, seek out your physician, seek out your therapist, your healthcare provider. They know you. We can talk generally about some issues if need be, but I just want to make sure that that is made aware. I also want to make these slides available at the end. I have some resources that I think can be really helpful. So I'll make sure that Genevieve gets them and publishes them on the JUFOC website. So when I was compiling this, I kind of wanted to compile it around the idea of questions that I'm seeing in my clinic, questions that we are getting, and try to talk a little bit about that. So the first question that people ask and is really common is my child okay right now? And I think we're very in tune to our child. We're also seeing them in a very different way. Most of us are used to seeing our children in the mornings, in the evenings, and on weekends. And now we're seeing them all day long. There's also a significant change for children going on right now. Home is the place that we all let our hair down. We put on our sweatpants, our Lululemons. We take it easy. We relax. And it's a place that children can come home and cry after a hard day. It's a place that children can share their frustrations with a friend. If they were bullied, they can talk to their family. And now home is also school. It's also the only play area. The playground might be that you have in your backyard, if you do, might be the only playground they get to play on. And so home is taking on these new rituals and routines, and children are having a little bit of trouble balancing that. And so parents may be just surprised by how dysregulated or upset their kids are getting about doing this work and doing work from home. And it's kind of like, well, home is the safe place. I can let things hang out. And you should expect your kid maybe letting some more things kind of hang out and some bigger issues come up. There is going to be some changes in routine. And sometimes for some kids, that can be a really big deal. Children crave reliability and consistency. They crave that they know what's coming and what to expect. And so sorry, admitting somebody, I guess. And that I think that somebody might be my dad. So hi, Dad. So children may present really having trouble with those transitions, those changes in routine. And I think as parents, we can talk through this with them. Children store a lot of their anxiety and frustrations in their body. And this is really different than the adult population, to the point that many children with anxiety conditions can have stomach aches, diarrhea, headaches, outbursts in other ways. In the DSM, where we kind of talk about our different conditions, a very unique difference between adult anxiety and child anxiety is the presence of somatic concerns, an upset stomach, etc., being part of the diagnostic criteria for anxiety. So if you have a child who's otherwise well, and all of a sudden is talking a lot about being upset, having an upset stomach, having diarrhea, struggling with constipation, it may be that they're starting to hold some of that anxiety, some of their worry in their body. I think that all of us can expect to see some challenging behaviors from our children right now. We may see more kids stomping up the stairs. We may see more tears. We're going to see more challenge. We're going to see more kind of direct challenges. And I think that's okay. This is a major transition, and kids are going to be acting differently. Another thing that may be occurring is some changes in sleep-related issues. we, especially with school age, elementary, preschool, kindergarten kids, we just can't at home mentally or physically exhaust them with stimuli in the same way they can get that at school. And so a really common thing that I am seeing in clinic is that kids are just struggling in a new way with getting to bed at night. They're going to bed a little bit later. They might be struggling with just kind of their bedtime routine. They may need more cuddles and more space. But some parents are actually finding this to be a pretty significant issue. In terms of kind of mentally stimulating your child, we will not be able to do that like school can. School, despite maybe the same curriculum, there's often 20 other kids their age sitting in the room with them with some give and take and being entertaining and playing. Your child needs to be witty. They need to understand the situation. They're reading things, verbal and nonverbal. At home, there's maybe one, two, three other people around. They're very standard people. The environment's very standard. And so I don't think there's an expectation that we can meet that need. Physically, we can do a little bit better. Thank goodness it's in the 60s finally here in Minnesota, but we have an opportunity to really get our kids moving, get them busy, and get them engaged in play. Go Noodle and some of these other websites for children are used in school so widely that you can let your kid be an expert, and we'll talk about that later, of how to demonstrate their busy body and how to really engage in that way. So I think the overall question, is my child okay, is likely they are, but likely there are some new challenges going on. Oh no. Sorry, 1 second, technical things. Sorry, Genevieve. I'm just trying to share my screen. I want to share a slide about stress and how we kind of think about stress.
If you move your cursor over your window, you should get the little bar at the bottom. And click
from Zoom. Cool. No, it's just, oops. All right. Sorry. It's like pulling it to full page and then I lose the zoom. So maybe I'll just talk about this then. So another important thing is the idea of stress and how we think about stress in children especially. And the idea that stress is actually really valuable and really important to a certain degree. Without obstacles, without hardship, without challenges, we don't grow and we don't learn. And so we need a certain amount of distress and hardship to kind of learn that we can rise up to it, challenge ourselves, and then get over it. That leads to growth and maturation. It also has to be obtainable stress that you can get over. In certain situations, stress can get high and stay high, and it can lead to kind of a toxic experience in the body. That usually happens with strong, frequent, and prolonged adversity. And I think something we need to guard our kids and ourselves against right now is turning this into that. If it is starting to have that feeling that this is a permanently adverse state, that is when I really want to start to talk about getting some support and getting some help. Because we should be able to have these moments where it's stressful and then we get over it and we come back down. This may be something that our main stress level is a little bit higher, but if we're commonly existing in this very high level of distress, that's concerning. If you start to see that in your child, it may be time to ask for some help. So another question that we get a lot of is how can we talk to our child about the coronavirus? And I think this is really an important one that is valuable. So in my slides, I do share some really good information about corona and about some really specific books that are very age appropriate, ranging from 2 years old all the way up into the teen years. Many of these focus on using age appropriate language for children, which is a really nice opportunity to make sure that you are giving kids what they need at the right age. It also explains things in a very kind of appropriate and helpful way. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can get my slides up for you guys, because I think that would be helpful. And I may just then leave them up for the remainder of this, if that's okay. Um, so I'm going to go share screen, do this. I think you'll enjoy looking at them more than you will looking at me. And then we are going to do that. And Genevieve, are you seeing that right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to skip back to where I was. Okay, so this is an example of one of the books. It's available for free from the WHO. And it's a really helpful book. If you guys know the Gruffalo series, this is written by the Gruffalo author, illustrated in the same way. I do have the link provided. And it's a really nice book about what we can do and what is going on. And I think a really important thing right now is that industry and that purpose of what we can do. And this helps focus on that. And here's the next question, like, what can I do today? What can I do to support my child to make sure they're not ending up in that toxic level of distress? And this first line, let your child be the expert, I think is one of the most important ones. Your child has an expertise from going to school, whether as a young child or an adolescent, in things you have no idea about. I think a lot of parents have seen the TikToks. It kind of looks like your child is developing arm tics, waving them around. Let your child teach you that. Do a TikTok with them. If you have a child who's into Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox, do that with them. Learn about it. Learn about the new Midas skill on Fortnite. It allows your child to demonstrate teaching and expertise and feel empowered. It lets them be aware of something they have control over. In terms of schooling, there's a lot expected of parents and their kids, but there is an opportunity, usually through art or specials or just in general science, to bring your own passion projects in. When I think of my 8-year-old, he loves to cook. He's always been a baker. He loves to get in front of the oven and work with mom and dad. And if we can shift his learning to one of his passions, it goes much easier. He gets wrapped up in it, and time gets lost to him. For some kids, that may mean building with Legos or creating. It may mean art. It may mean playing the guitar. It may mean going outside and looking for cool bugs in a pond. But it's an opportunity to play to your child's passions and things that they get lost in. On a daily basis, I work in a partial hospital program, and it's very striking how much children need breaks. Children need body breaks, they need brain breaks, they need active breaks, they need chill breaks. A body break is a time to use your body and be busy. I think a lot of teachers, especially of the elementary kids, actually send this home as a recommendation, maybe even give things you can do. But it's a chance to throw a ball, to run around, to jump on the couch, to wrestle, to get that energy out. Brain breaks might mean reading something that you enjoy, doing something like that. And I think that that's really an important aspect for children as well. Finally, there's active breaks, those body breaks that are busy breaks, but there can also be chill breaks. Those are things we all need. I think right now, defining spaces is also really important. Home, whether big or small, is home. It's a place that is normally relaxed. With young children, there may not even be a defined homework space yet. It's an opportunity to kind of create a space within your home for the learning, or a space within your home for your child to just know it's his relax or her relaxed space, where they're going to be kind of left to do their own thing, where they can get away. And even the most cuddly kids who need the most holding at this point are going to need times where they can just step away. They can get some quiet. Space sometimes is defined by more than just the physical space as well. At times it's going to make it creating space through quiet. Headphones may be really helpful. Creating space through body temperature or core, something like a heavy blanket, a warm blanket, something like that. Places that are cozy, that have that Minnesota heggy, so I think it's really important to look into that. Additionally, connection is really important. I think a lot of people have gotten very, very quickly accustomed to apps like House Party and Zoom. think the most valuable one for parents, especially of school-age children, is going to be Messenger Junior. It records all the interactions. Parents need to approve the guests that your child speaks to. It's controlled in a significant way. That is through the Facebook Messenger app. Kids need to be interacting. They're going to be very comfortable with these apps. They're going to be comfortable with Snapchat. They're going to be comfortable with TikTok, especially the older kids. The younger kids are going to need some help. Once they get on this, it will be the highlight of their day. It may be the highlight of your day watching them interact with their friends as well. I think right now, a lot of us have gotten very much into, can you see me again? All right, so have gotten very into schedules, and every family has its own level of scheduling. And we knew this beforehand. There's families where every dinner's arranged for the week. We know what nights we're going out to eat, and there's families that fly by the seat of their pants. Both are okay, and all ranges of that are okay. I think right now there is kind of a call a little bit more for scheduling, but it doesn't need to be, 8:30 we wake up. Robin, I see your message. I will get to it. So it doesn't need to be 8:30 we wake up, 9 o'clock we have breakfast, 9:15 we start social studies, 9:30 we do this. That can get a little overbearing. It can be a little stressful for kids. It really changes the dynamic of the home. I think it may be easier to have kind of, right now we're going to get up, we're going to brush our teeth, then we'll have breakfast. After breakfast, we do our first study time. When we're done with that, we'll take a break and kind of gauging how the day is going. And then trying to keep within that schedule of, okay, we took our break. Now's a good time to do an outside activity. Then we'll come back in and do an indoor study session, and then go on from there. And using meals as kind of the tent poles of the day, but it does not need to be structured to the point that it's exhausting, overwhelming, or leading to more conflict. I think another big part is create right now. And I think sometimes creation, whether it's cooking, art, and other things, feels really valuable. And other times it feels a little bit like arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. And that's okay. It can feel wonderful at a certain point to create art, and later it can feel really difficult and overwhelming. But I think the more you create, the more you bring purpose, the more valuable that's going to be. I'm going to pull up Robin's questions. Yeah, so discipline. So Robin asks, can you speak to discipline during this time of newness, especially for a 4 to 5-year-old? Robin, number one, I think that's a really wonderful question. I think we are finding ourselves in a very different situation of being with our kids all day long, especially when many parents still have significant responsibilities and are wearing significant hats, being both a breadwinner, cooking dinner, maybe getting, leading services in a way that you haven't led before, and kids are going to be pushing against this. It is not the time to implement a brand new behavioral plan for kids. There's enough new things already, but it is a time to be direct and to clarify expectations and be consistent with messaging, and kids will respond well to that. I think discipline, and whatever your discipline has been in your home, but timeouts, or I'm going to ask you to take a break right now, and then we're going to refocus. I think trying to be aware of when your kid may need one of those body breaks, one of those activity breaks, and saying, hey, it looks like you could use an activity break. Let's do this. But I don't think it's time to start a brand new kind of discipline and activity plan for a child. So another question that we're hearing a lot about is, how can I explain these masks? When we are driving, when we are out, we are seeing people look different. They are wearing masks on their faces. How do I share with my child that the world is different? And it may not be, and they may not feel as safe, or they may be more worried about getting sick. So first off, this is a time where the world is different. It is a time where people are looking different and they're interacting differently. But I think also kids are looking for things that they can do to help remain safe and to help combat and fight the coronavirus. Young kids may see it as a bad guy or a bad germ, and they want to feel like they can do something against it. By wearing masks, this allows us some empowerment and allows us a purpose in how we really kind of take part and fight against it. And I think we can talk about, just like superheroes put on their capes and their costumes, so we know that they're fighting for good, these masks can be something that our kids can wear that allows them to keep people safe and fight for good. There's a lot of different types of masks, but there's an opportunity to create or decorate your masks as a family, or pick out specific types of old t-shirts or other things that you want to use. I think this is an opportunity for, again, that creation, which can be really helpful for children. So I'm reading the note from Jesse. I'd be curious about Dr. Stein's thoughts on potential mental health impacts on toddlers right now. Concerned about missing something because they can't articulate or communicate. I could tell my toddler starting to figure out something's up, but she hasn't or can't communicate it. I want to make sure we aren't ignoring our children who can't yet necessarily communicate what they're feeling or observing. So that's a wonderful question. How do we, speak for the one who can't speak? A little bit of a Passover question right there, that the child who's unable to ask. And I think that's a really good one. I think first off, we have to remember that to our children, young and old, we're mirrors. So our kids look to us to know what's going on. And so if mom is angry, if dad is irritable, if dad appears scared or nervous, your child inherently will pick up on that and act out some of those emotions. I think one step there, Jesse, is making sure you're maintaining your own self-care, and that you are talking to somebody or to engage another adult, whether it's online, whether it's in the home, whether it's your rabbi, whether it's a friend, to kind of get out some of those emotions and your own worry. Children, I talked about a little bit earlier, they also can sometimes start to have body concerns when they're getting really overwhelmed. So start to have issues with, like if they were toilet trained, having more issues with toilet training. If they are struggling with getting to the bathroom on time, they're just lying in bed, if they're appearing listless. I think it's okay. I said at the end of my presentation, which I'll send out, there's some links to PBS Kids and a lot of the small presentations that they gave, including Daniel Tiger. And I think that these also can help kids understand the changes that are happening in a very appropriate kind of social, emotional, and developmental way. Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen again. I'm not a whiz at Zoom yet. All right. So next question. Oy vey, what about our milestones? So as we end our academic year, a lot of families are starting to get worried. Culturally, both as Americans and as Jews, when we have milestones, whether they're births, whether they're weddings, whether they're deaths, whether it's a bar mitzvah, we celebrate these things. Whether we come together, we have special foods, we say special prayers. And so I think it's really important that we still honor these moments, though it may be in a different or creative way. I think one of the really hard things, whether it's elementary school graduation, daycare graduation, high school or college graduation, is there's not this kind of end cap experience that potentially is needed. We mark these moments and it's quite valuable. As parents, this is going to be a bit more of a challenge for you to find ways to effectively mark these moments. They deserve and should be celebrated. Communities will rally around you if you give the opportunity. Staying within the social distance guidelines is important, but there are opportunities. Creating a sign or having a sign made that people from the neighborhood or other people can drive by and sign is really valuable. An opportunity to say, instead of our open house for graduation, this year we're going to be sitting on our driveway and we're going to be out there from noon till 4. Please drive by and wave and say hello and share. I think it's really important to kind of still find ways to do this. I've been so impressed by the creativity and the community of ways to kind of celebrate, whether it's parades. From a developmental perspective, this may be harder on adolescents and college-age kids. This is the time that we rebel. This is the time that we kind of break away a little bit in society and we start to determine who we are. And at that moment, these kids are being pulled back into the home and being controlled in a way that is going to feel really, really artificial and really difficult. Please expect that your kids are going to rebel. They are going to want to leave the house. They are going to want to see friends. I think it's going to be really important to talk about this ahead of time. Different parents have always had different expectations for what their children can and cannot do. And so there are going to be kids that are doing things that you don't want your kids to do. And if you start to talk about, well, if they jump off a bridge, are you going to jump off a bridge? Kids just stop right there. I think asking them, what do you think is appropriate? What do you think is needed to stay safe? Why do you think we need to stay safe and stay home right now? I think picking rules that are very focused on safety is important, and coming up with them with your child and potentially building a contract is important. And I think outside of that, having some flexibility that they may be up later, they may be online longer, and being flexible to that. On the other hand, social media use does need to be monitored right now. There is concern that with the amount of kids on social media, the companies are not able to perhaps monitor as well as they need to. I think it's really important that if you have an early adolescent, mid-adolescent, that you are teaching them what safe social media is. That is a lecture for another time, but it's incredibly valuable for your child to know what is safe and what isn't. This may be an opportunity to slow down and kind of go through that with them. And that could be a class for the day. I think the other question we get a lot is, especially as I do these telehealth calls, some of the teens are actually doing pretty well, whereas the parents may not be doing as well. And I just want to take a second to kind of answer the question, are my kids okay? But also, am I okay? I'm going to share my screen here. I'm getting better at this, Genevieve. So we are all wearing a lot of hats right now. It's like a kippa and then like I don't know, well, just all sorts of stuff. Then a sombrero, then a baseball hat, but these are new roles and we're being asked to do a lot. Some families are, for the first time, having to cook lunch for their children. Some families had to set up a Seder, which they never would have done before. Other families are having to say, I can't do a Seder. It's too much for me right now. Families are having to do bar mitzvah training. They're having to kind of be camp counselors. They're having to be wrestlers. They're having to do all these things as well as be teachers. You need to let yourself off the hook as a parent. The American Academy of Pediatrics continues to recommend 2 hours of screen time a day, but that is not the case right now. First off, there's a difference between school screen time and fun screen time, and kids should still get their fun screen time even if they are on their screens during the day. A screen is pretty uniquely useful in that most kids can have a screen and remain on it and actively engaged for a long amount of time. So I think using that as you need it, whether it's to get back to your job, to have a quiet moment for yourself, to get the coffee going, to take your shower, but just remember how useful that tool is. And it is okay to use that when needed. There are millions and millions and millions of resources out there. We've had a month now for you to learn about IXL and Epic and Seesaw and all these other things. At this point, you may have some idea which ones your child gravitates to, which ones pull them in. It's okay to start shifting to those. And it's also okay to have moments where you just don't make it to all the work or get all the work done during the day. There's a lot of expectations of family. You do not need to be the perfect teacher. As I said before, parents are mirrors to their children. And it's okay to mirror sadness. It's okay to mirror grief. it's okay to be emotional. We do not need to be stoic rocks. And in fact, when we try and do that to our kids, it shows them that you're also not okay with potentially their emotions because you're not okay with yours. If you are sad, explain why. Share why you miss grandma or Bubby or whatever you call her, why it's hard not to see her right now. A lot of these emotions are tied up in grief. Grief is not a straight line. There will be days of laughter and joy and too much laughter and days where things feel hard and you're angry. Um, so it's okay to show those things, talk about it, talk about why mom was crying, and show how you care for yourself or you cared for a loved one when that happens. Um, on the other side, there's kind of this question of when should I seek out help? What sort of help do I need? So I wanted to just outline a couple things. Um, Warning signs, we often can have warning signs and they're kind of called neurovegetative signs. The signs where almost like who we are and our activity level and what we do starts to change. Um, so at times you can start to sleep too much, not get out of bed, feel like giving up, stop caring for your hygiene, not eat as much or eat way too much, feel more irritable, start to act more reckless, have people be concerned about you. And I think if you're starting to wonder if things are not going okay, first off, right now, that's all right. That is something that is going to happen to some people. This is going to be too overwhelming for some people to handle on their own. There's so much out there and so much support. I'll talk about telemedicine in a little bit. Also, with your spouse or with your partner, your significant other, or your friend you live with, or your children, if the conflict is getting severe, if it is getting to the point of near violence, whether verbal violence or physical violence, that is a sign that things are not okay, and you are welcome and deserve support. If you are starting to have thoughts that you don't want to wake up in the morning, or your child talks about just wanting to sleep the rest of the month away, you are welcome to and deserve support then too. And there's lots of people who can help you understand if you just need someone more to talk to, or medications could be helpful, or maybe you just need to check in with the rabbi or a best friend. I think it's okay to ask, am I doing okay? And do I need more support right now to try and figure that out? The really cool thing about telehealth right now is that it is going to allow very rapid increased access and very quick appointments from your home. And it's going to, instead of having an hour of travel total to get to the appointment and check in and everything, you can kind of wedge this into your day very quickly. And we're seeing really nice responses to that. Finally, if your child is struggling with self-injury due to feeling overwhelmed, while self-injury is not normal, it is common, and it is happening much more often than it did even a generation ago. That is a sign that your child needs more support and more help. And there's some numbers at the end that you can reach out to if you need that. So the next question is teletherapy good? Does it work? And to put it simply, yes, it's actually pretty amazing. My colleagues and I have been talking here about just how significant it's been with our teenagers to interact with them in that way. Teenagers are almost more used to communicating through a phone than they are to communicating in person. And we have seen barriers come down that we have struggled with for a long time when we start to talk with them in their bedroom or on their couch, when they have their dog sitting next to them, when they're in their comfy place. And there's been movement in kids that's much more rapid than I've seen in the past. So not only do I think it's okay, I think uniquely it can be strikingly helpful with this population. It also gives them a chance to share a little bit more about who they are and what they're doing as they get to share their room and their posters. And like I get to share behind me, you can see a little bit about my personality. They do the same thing. Kids still have basketball heroes on their walls. And, kids still have these favorite stuffed animals. And it's a really cool opportunity to connect. So does it work? Yes, it does work quite well. I'm going to share my screen again. Another question people have is, would meds help right now? And I think the answer is potentially. If you are at that crisis point where things are not okay, where things are difficult, it's very likely that you are having a potential adjustment disorder. Adjustments happen when we have big changes in life. They can lead to changes in our moods and our anxiety. In children and adolescents and young adults, it can lead to increased defiance, increased issues with conduct and behavior. Often medications are not needed for adjustment disorders. Often medications are needed for more severe illnesses, but they can be helpful. And I think a good doctor or psychiatrist can really help determine that. There's different types of meds, and to kind of summarize simply, there's daily medications that can help with irritability and anxiety. These are meds you take every day, and over time they cause changes in the brain that would help things to feel more relaxed and to feel more stable. An example would be Lexapro or Prozac, Effexor, Cymbalta. On the other hand, there's as-needed medications. These are meds used kind of like Tylenol for headaches. When you have a headache, you take Tylenol. When you don't have a headache, you don't take Tylenol. So people who struggle maybe with panic, significant anxiety, or getting very irritable at certain times, but not on a regular basis, may benefit from having something available. And likely, as you go through this adjustment and that feeling of distress comes down, these meds would not be needed. If a med was used now on a day-to-day basis, it does not mean that in a year you'll still be on that medication, but it may be very, very helpful in the short term. The daily meds are thought of, I think, as happy pills. And what I often tell my patients is they're much better at building indifference towards hard things so you can enjoy the other positive moments of your life. And so I think in this case, they can maybe take the edge off if you're getting to the point where safety is a concern or you're having some of those neurovegetative symptoms. So mental health is a field. It often feels like there's a bunch of locked doors, and it's really hard to know where to turn to get help. And so PrairieCare offers a needs assessment. Other organizations have things like this as well, but these are ways to very quickly be evaluated and get feedback. So in our organization, if a family calls for a needs assessment, our goal is within 48 hours to do an interview from a social worker to the family to collect what is the concerns and needs. The social worker during that assessment then would process it with the physician and then give the family a recommendation. These recommendations are within and outside of PrairieCare, and the goal is to be as specific to your location and as specific to your mental health needs as possible. I think one of the really cool things about it right now is that with the kind of rollback of all these telehealth laws, you can potentially get very specific care and live very, very far away in the state from that location. That is a huge change. An example would be Rogers has a wonderful OCD day program in Eden Prairie that normally a family from Fridley, a family from Alexandria, even a family from St. Paul may not be able to do because of the distance, because driving each day is hard. Right now, there's been such a switch to telehealth, there's opportunities to do really specific programs that previously may not be available. There's a lot of different levels of care ranging from partial days to full days, inpatient, to once every 2-week check-ins with a therapist. But I think if you're having that question, do I need help? This is a nice way to help answer that very specifically to you.
Hey, Dr. Stein, we have a question from the Facebook, which I posted in the chat, which is, do you have any suggestions for toddler age children that are confused and sad and acting out? Teletherapy doesn't seem to address this age's needs because they usually do play therapy. What would you say about that?
Absolutely. So first off, the play therapy community has actually taken some huge steps forward with use of teletherapy. So you can, if you are not getting your needs met, you can ask that they return to their kind of training and see what is available. There is play therapy that can be done online and through these interactions. It is different, but the feedback I'm getting from our therapists who do that type of therapy is that it's going surprisingly well. I have a 3-year-old. Part of me also is like, well, if I tried to put Emerson in front of the computer, how would that go? But I think if it actually, from what I've been told, it's going well. Um, I think at that point, it does get harder. I think making sure your toddler has a chance to get their energy out. I think your toddler likely can see their friends that they miss on the phone and through the computer and interact with them. It is rewarding to watch them interact, to see their faces light up. But it is a hard time right now as they miss their normal routines and they miss school. I think asking them about it is really important. Telling them that they're going to see their teachers again soon, their bubby again soon, the people they love again soon is important. Offering reassurance and also kind of being aware of what you're presenting to them. Toddlers love their families. Their dream is to be with their family as much as possible. So they may find this actually to be a positive time, but it also is a lot to be with a toddler all the time. So I think gauging your own functioning and asking for support if you need it. At the end of the presentation, I do have some resources for families that they can take a look at, and I hope that that would be helpful. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen again. So, PAL, Genevieve was nice enough to mention it. It's a really cool thing that we do in Minnesota through DHS, and it's an opportunity for any doctor to call and speak to a psychiatrist like within 5 to 10 minutes. So it helps with clinical triage, it helps with diagnoses, and it helps with medication. And we do recognize that there's a profound shortage of child psychiatrists in this state, as well as adult psychiatrists. And this gives you an opportunity, if you have a connection with a physician, to say, you know, yeah, I understand you're not super comfortable going above 150 of Effexor, but I really, can you call this line and you can get an immediate consult to walk through it. So I bring this up because it's a way to access psychiatric resources. It's a way to also access psychiatric social workers who can help your doctor, your pediatrician, your internist with knowing about resources. It's another entry point into the mental health community. So I wanted to offer some final tips, and then I'll take more questions. But these are from the American Academy of Child Adolescent Psychiatry. And these are just kind of talking about ways to kind of support your child and support the home. And they're things that we talked about today. So having a schedule, having a regular routine to a degree, it does not need to be exact. Giving your kids some choices about what they can and can't do, perhaps picking the side, picking which dessert, telling you what ice cream they want to have at home. Help them keep in touch. If they have questions, answer them honestly using concepts and words they can understand. If this feels uncomfortable, practicing it, whether on the phone with family members or not. There's a lot of worksheets, fact sheets, and children's books. I do link many of them, and that will be made available this afternoon. I think right now many people are finding that it's a lot more worthwhile to watch light shows than heavy shows. They're finding they need distraction. I think keeping this in mind for kids, watching too much frightening material right now may be hard. It's okay to stick with some lighter things. I think finding shows that you can collectively watch, like families used to do in the 90s, may be worthwhile right now. From my family, somehow we found Supermarket Sweep on Amazon Prime from 1991, and it is the most absurdly enjoyable thing, and our kids absolutely love it. So something to consider, but kind of limiting that. Help them find their passion, choose something new, have them be the expert, share about it, be physically active. In Minnesota, for the most part, we do have that opportunity. We live in places that we can be outside, use that space. If you don't have a lot of space where you live, think about areas that you can go to and be outside. It's going to be worthwhile. As Minnesotans, we know how good this spring sun and weather feels. And it's okay to enjoy it, and it's okay to enjoy being outside. Cook, bake with your kids, be flexible. I think the novelty has worn off at this point. And it's okay if your kids don't want to talk right now to wait until later. Be honest with them, share how you're feeling. Again, It's okay to mirror that you're having a difficult time too. Give them space, give them their downtime. Let as many little things go as you can. It's not time to nitpick. It's not time to overreact. If you're overreacting to really little things, it may be that the bigger stuff is starting to get to you. Take a break at that point. Tag yourself out with somebody if you can. If you don't have another parent to help support, if you don't have another family member to help support, consider talking with somebody about how to get breaks in for yourself. The last thing is, I think a really hard thing about this is we make these sacrifices is we can't plan for the future. Like the NFL draft was last night, and as fun as it might be for sports fans, it was like, well, I don't even know if there's going to be a football season. How can I let myself care? This is going to pass. As we say, this too shall pass, right? So this is going to pass. Things are going to return to normal. It is okay to start talking about what you want to do when things are normal and where you want to go. You may not want to buy the ticket yet, but it's okay to make that trip plan to go to Duluth and talk about what you want to do there and the pizza you want to eat there and what brewery you want to see and what hike you want to do. It's okay to start sharing those things with your family and start looking to the future again. I think that's really important. So again, these are some of the resources. There's the first one is an answer book for kids. The next one is the American Academy of Child Adolescent Psychiatrist Resources for Family. I included a New York Times article that I think has some really good links to books. That PBS Kids videos for preschoolers, some Daniel Tiger and other things about washing hands, why we do it. My Hero is You is a book that was published by the WHO that is very, very appropriate and very kind and friendly for children. Then finally, Stress Management in Teens. I think this is a good sheet to just kind of look through to remind yourself how to help them manage stress and manage the stress of being with them. So I'm gonna come back. Okay. Hi guys. So I was just wondering if there's any additional questions or concerns or things people wanted to touch base on as we kind of wrap the hour. Okay.
I'll just unmute myself so I can just ask you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. So at my house, I have a one who's turning 14 tomorrow, 11 and a half, and a year old, and an 8.5-year-old. And it sort of feels like the screen time has become a little bit of a free-for-all, as you know, I try to work and my husband is working as an essential worker. So like, am I doing long-term damage to them? Should I just stop caring? I mean.
So first off, I think, no, you are not doing long-term damage to your kids. I want to reassure you of that. I think that's a question that a lot of people have. This is an incredibly hard moment, and it may be one of the most unique moments that we all experience collectively throughout the world. We do know that quarantines and these limitations can yield some trauma-related symptoms over time. But I also think the opportunity to be on screens and connecting with kids and sharing and creating your Minecraft worlds or playing Fortnite is okay. And it's a way to engage and pass time. I think if you have an opportunity and you don't end up in too many profound power struggles, it's okay to say, Friday nights we don't have screens, it's a family night, or we're going to use our screen to do house party, and we're going to, or do those you don't know Jack games, and we'll play against grandma, or we'll play against your friends from down the road. But it's okay that the rules are relaxed. And even for little kids right now, I think in some ways, it's okay to step away, be flexible, and let yourself off the hook. I know a lot of families who are saying, like, I'm done with homeschool, like, I'm just going to be done with this. And I think that if it's okay to have moments where you do more, you do less, if it's getting too hard to take a break, but it does offer some structure, and I think kids expect to do it. And so if the battles are getting too severe, it may be worthwhile asking for more support right now. And family therapists can be really helpful to define that and create some really structured contracts. I've seen that from Synergy and from LE Family Services, that they really can support kind of building out ways to have kids know what expectations are. And if you're struggling with that right now, which most families are, that can be really helpful. Good luck to everybody. I'm full disclosure, we have 3 kids, second grader, kindergartner, and a toddler. And that it is a challenge without question. It is very challenging to try and do school and balance the needs of your children right now. But hang in there. And if you need support, if you're finding that you just want to give up, please reach out. We are here, we're listening, we're kind of ready to talk and help. There's a lot that we can do. Lean into your temples, lean into your churches. If you're Jewish or your spouse is not Jewish, your partner's not Jewish, there's a lot of support there. And there's a lot of love there as well, and helps maintain hope and future orientation. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much to those celebrating Shabbat Shalom this evening, and all the best, okay?
Thank you so much, Dr. Stein. We really appreciate your time.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.